Welcome, pre-algebra. Excuse me. We are in lesson 48 today, and we're going to talk about fractional parts of a number. And what I mean by that is we're going to have some word problems that ask us what fraction of whatever is whatever. So let's start with example 48.1, just to kind of get in the rhythm of what I'm talking about. So this problem says, what fraction of 75 is 25? So honestly, we know that 75 is 3 times 25. So we know that 25 is 1/3 of 75. So this is an easy one to learn on because we already know the answer, because we can intuit that based on knowing the value of, 25 times 3 is 75. We can look at that and tell. But here's how you set up the problem. So what fraction? That's what it's looking for. That's our unknown. So for our unknown, we're going to use the letter F because we're looking for a fraction. Of is always multiplication. Then we have 75. And then we have is our equal sign. And then 25 is what it's equal to. We can do this. Now we can say F times 75 equals 25. Well, we know when we have a variable, this is our variable, because our variable just means a letter that represents the unknown value. So we're going to treat this like a variable, and we're going to say 75 times F is equal to 25, right? That's the same thing as this. We just rewrote it in a way that looks better. Now we know what to do. We know that we're going to divide both of these sides, because whatever you do to one side, we have to do to the other side. We're going to divide these by 75. 75 over 75 is 1, so that factors out. So then all we have on this side is F. But we can reduce this fraction by 25. And if you didn't already know that, you could factor it out. So 25 would be 5 times 5. And 75 would be 3 times 5 times 5, right? Because 5 times 5 is 25, and 5 times 5 is 25, times 3 is 75. So we're able to factor out a pair of 5s and another pair of 5s. And remember, whenever we get rid of all of the factors on top, everything is always times 1. Everything is always times 1. So the 1 is always remaining there. So our answer is 1 over 3, because we have a 1 in the top and a 3 in the denominator. 1 in the numerator, 3 in the denominator, 1 over 3. But we knew that. We knew that before we started answering the problem, that there were 3 25s in 75, and that 25 was 1/3 of 75. That's what we're doing. We're finding out the parts. Miss Tracy, wouldn't it have been easier to just divide 25 by 75 or 75 by 25 and get, there's 3 of them, and then turn them into, yes, you could, if you remember to put it in the proper order, which is 1 out of 3. This does the proper order for you. So solving it like this is actually better, because then you don't have to then you don't have to remember steps on the back end to put it in the right format. It's already in that format. So let's do 48.2. So here we have 5/7 of what number is 5 over 2. So this is giving us the fraction here. This is our fraction. So 5/7, 5 over 7. Of is multiplication. What number? That's n. We don't know what the number is. That's another, whatever, that's our variable, right? Is our equal sign. and then 5 over 2 is the other side of the equation, what all of this is supposed to be equal to. So we rewrite this so that it makes sense to us. 5/7 times n is equal to 5 over 2. Now remember what we do when we have a fraction times a variable. In order to eliminate the fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. So 7 over 5 times 5 over 7. But whatever we do to this side, we have to do to this side. So times 7 over 5. This cancels. This becomes 35 over 35. That's 1n. So n is left over here. We have 1n by itself. 5 times 7 is 35. Actually, I'm not even going to do that because look at what we have. We have a factor here and a factor here that we can cancel out. So all we have to do is write 7 over 2. Now remember, we can always check our answer if we're not sure about it. And sometimes, let's be honest, the fractions get switched around a bit when we're not really sure about the answer. So we need to check our work just to make sure. So I am going to rewrite this, okay? And I'm going to say 5 over 7 times, and I'm going to put in the value of n in here, 7 over 2. 7 over 2 is equal to 5 over 2. Well, look and see what I see here. I see a 7 and a 7 that I can factor out, which leaves 5 over 2 is equal to 5 over 2. And we know that's correct. So I know this is correct because it completes this. It solves it. And if we had multiplied this, we would have gotten 35 over 14. We could have divided 35 by 7 and gotten 5. And 14 divided by 7 would be 2. Would have been the same answer. We just divided first by factoring and canceling. All right, so we can have confidence in that answer because we checked our work. Let's do 48.3. All right, 40. All right, so we have something very similar. This one says 5/7 of 5 over 2 is what number? So let's look at our parts. 5/7, that's a fraction. That's 5 over 7. Of means multiplication. And then we have a fraction here. Is, and what number? That's n. We don't know what the number is, right? So all we have to do is multiply. 5 times 5 is 25. 7 times 2 is 14. That is the value of n. That one was super, super easy. That is the answer. That's as far as we can go. Right? So it's not always going to be hard, but the way it's written will trip you up. Always know that of means multiplication, and the is the equal. So then we just take what's in between those and put them where they go. This is where the 5/7 went. This is where the 5 halves went. And this is where our variable, because we have the what here, because we don't know what it is. And that's where that went. So you can see breaking it down strategically. I mean, each part just matches. Let's do 48.4. That is our last one. So this says, what number is 7 over 9 of 450? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pause the video now, and I want you to solve that yourself. Remember the parts. Find the variable. Find the equal sign. Find the multiplication sign. And put in all the values in between the equal and the multiplication sign. All right, I'm going to assume that you paused the video and you worked this problem. If you didn't, pause it and work it out. Pause it and work it out now, because I'm about to answer the problem. All right, I think we probably have done this by now. Let's go ahead and solve it. So what number? That's our variable. We don't know. It's asking us what number. So that's going to be n. N is our what number? All right, is, we know what that is. That's the equal sign. So that goes next. N equals. Then we have 7/9, so that goes next. It goes right here. Of is our multiplication, so we put the multiplication here. And then we have 450, right? So then that goes last, 450. So we have 5 parts. We have a variable, an equal sign, 7/9, multiplication, and 450. Now we can solve it. All we have to do first is turn this whole number into a fraction. So n is equal to 7 times 450, 7/9 times 450 over 1. All right, so let's look at our factors here. I'm going to rewrite 450 because 450 is the same thing as 45 times 10, right? And 45, so that's 10 times 45. 45 is the same thing as 9 times 5. So I can factor out the 9s. Guess what? When I factor out this 9, all I have left is a 1 down here, because 9 times 1 is 9. So now I can multiply. N is equal to 7 times 10 times 5 over 1 times 1, which is 1. 7 times 10 is 70, and 70 times 5 is equal to 350 over 1. So because this is over 1, this is a whole number, so n is equal to 350. So that tells me that 350 is 7/9 of 450. That is what I was looking for, was this number right here. All right. And that is your answer. And that is the last example problem for lesson 48. If you have any questions about this type of problem and how to set it up, please ask. Also, go back and rewatch the video, because it's very clear when it says whatever it is, that's your variable. And then I just use the first letter of whatever it is to represent the variable for that question. What number is a question? N starts with, number starts with N, so N is my variable. You can use X, you can use Y, you can use whatever you want. That just makes it easy to relate back to the number sentence that we have, or the word problem that we have, because I can draw that parallel in my mind. Is always your equal sign, and then of is always your multiplication, and then whatever is on either side, it's where you drop it in. You just come straight down. Variable, equal sign, this fraction or this value, whatever it is, multiplication, and then the last value. And then you solve it. Remember to factor and cancel, because that's going to save you some time in the long run. And then you can get back to your answer. And that's all we have for lesson 48. I will see you in lesson 49.